Year Two's counselling. I'm really sorry I won't be able to make it today. We've got a really important meeting with UEA. So instead, I thought I'll do something different, put together a video, and you'll get to have the slides for this session and a handout with some exercises too. So, what are we working on then? Paraphrasing in text. So, this is one of the areas that you guys asked for us to review. So, that's what we're going to do. So session objectives, obviously we haven't got the opportunity to review your activities from last week, but just a quick reminder, we did look at building an argument last week. We also looked at different vocab that you can use, and I also threw OneNote in. So we actually covered really quite a lot. I'll be really interested to find out how you are getting on though, and when we meet next time, I look forward to finding more about that. We will look at the resources available to support you and obviously explore and demonstrate how to paraphrase. We'll be focusing on paraphrasing from the first person, so your formal academic writing, and we'll also be looking at it from a reflective basis because actually they kind of are a little bit different when you start adding in your reflections too. So paraphrasing in text, referencing resources. In the Academic Skills Centre, there are a few things. First of all, you've got your library referencing guide. So if in doubt, if you need that quick reminder on how to reference, hopefully you'll be pros at this now, then we've got the short guide and the long guide available via these links. You'll have access to this on the slides through the library pages, or you can also access them through the Academic Skills Centre. Talking about the Academic Skills Centre then, the material, a lot of the content that we're talking about comes from the area here, academic integrity and referencing. That's the area where we have got a module on how to reference. So this is what it looks like when you click onto it. So you've got that Harvard referencing e-learning there, which will talk to you about how to reference, but also talks about how to paraphrase as well. So if you do need kind of a refresher on that, then I'll highly recommend you do that. That's something you would have done in your first year as part of your induction activities. And again, we've got those referencing guidelines here, and we've got some videos and extra reading here. Okay, so something to let me move me about a little bit. Your kind of job as an undergraduate is to transfer knowledge from sources. So a lot of this is about reading and then thinking about, well, okay, how does this relate to me? So what you'll be doing as part of that, you can incorporate work of others by either paraphrasing a part or element of something that someone else has written. You might be directly quoting, or you might be summarising a whole text to give a general overview. This video here will be focusing on paraphrasing in particular, but if you need more help on direct quoting, then have a look at that content in the e-learning in the Academic Skills Centre. Okay. So this is just a quick reminder on when you should reference. Basically, if you're writing your using the thoughts of others, then you need to make sure that you do reference. So we tend to look at your work, and we will review your work when we're marking it, and be thinking about, well, who says that, and that's really where you do need to add your references in if you've got those sources from elsewhere, that understanding and knowledge. So if you are directly quoting, then obviously you've got to follow the referencing for direct quoting. Alternatively, it will probably be what we're going to encourage you to do is put things in your own words. You're going to reference that. All you need is the surname and date. You don't need any page numbers when you're paraphrasing, so that's useful to know as well. So, looking at paraphrasing in more detail then. Let me move me about a little bit. So, what is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing means that you're explaining someone else's ideas in your own words, and they're usually more shorter and more concise. This obviously demonstrates that you have a wider understanding of the text because you're able to put it in your own words. If you're able to do that, as we have got here, then that can help improve your grades. So we will be moving away from direct quoting, which should never be any more than 10% of your word count anyway. which is in policy. But we're really encouraging you to move away from that direct quoting and paraphrasing. But something that's really important here is that when you do paraphrase it, the meaning remains the same, but it's just explained in your own voice. This allows you, obviously, to have your own voice for an assignment whilst incorporating the work of others. Something to be aware of is that the sound of your voice shouldn't change as you start to paraphrase. So, for example, you might be writing in perhaps a less formal, particularly if it's reflective, although we do encourage to make sure it's as formal as possible when you reflect. There is a different kind of tone to the words that you use, and you could go from kind of that non-academic bit where you're writing about yourself, where then you paraphrase and then it comes across as all a bit more academic, and then you go back to yourself and it's a little bit non-academic. So what we want to make sure that you do is, for your proofreading, is make sure that that language flows, that it doesn't dip from informal to formal to informal, etc. When you are paraphrasing, then you might synthesize the work of others at the same time. So rather than just paraphrasing one person, you might look to paraphrase more than one. And that's something, a skill that will build up from year 2 through to year 3. Summarising is, just so that you know, summarising is similar to paraphrasing. The principles remain the same, but that's what you'll be looking at, a larger source, or probably the whole source. Students do find it challenging to paraphrase, but it's important to say that it does get easier with practice. The more you do, the easier it gets. And just that quick reminder that all you need when you are referencing in text to paraphrase is the surname and date through when you're studying Harvard referencing. So, what's the best way of paraphrasing then? Best way really is to write without looking at the original source. So take your time to read your source, put it down, and then write it out in your own words. So that's really the best way of doing it, is not having those words in front of you, because what students often will say to us is that I don't know how to do it because they've already got the best words. So the best thing to do is close that down. And also, more likely that you're tailoring the work from others to suit your own assignment, your own learning outcomes and stuff. So you'll find that there will be a difference in how you would write to how the author would write, because you're writing in different contexts. Another way of doing it is to imagine that you're telling a friend what you've just read in your own words. So literally say it out aloud. And the third point here, which is really important, is make sure that then you check back the original source to check that your information is correct. And it's really important to make sure that that meaning still remains the same, that you haven't changed that in this process. You might just take what you need from the source rather than taking it all. And again, you only need to take the parts that are relevant to what you are writing about. So whatever's in your assignment plan, whatever's in your assignment brief or learning outcomes. And we'll encourage you to make connections with the topic that you're writing about and the work of others. And obviously make sure that you cite your source, so remembering that surname and date. So here we've got some examples. You're going to really need to, I'm not going to read these out aloud, of an original source here, and then an example of paraphrasing and the approach that was taken to paraphrase that. But what we're actually going to do is take the opportunity to do some paraphrasing linking to the subject that's more relevant to you. So just share with some common issues with paraphrasing. So these are ones that we are fully aware of, happens all the time, and you might or may not be doing these yourself. So swapping out words is not paraphrasing. That means when you're right click on your computer to come out with some different words to paraphrase. Often when students do that, we can tell, but also sometimes people will use the word that has been recommended by your computer system that you're using, and actually the meaning does not relate to what you're trying to get out. So it's really important to make sure that if you are right clicking and you're using synonyms, or that actually you always understand the meaning of those words. But swapping out words on its own is not paraphrasing. So if in doubt, use a direct quote if that's the case. And likewise, changing the order of a sentence also is not paraphrasing. So if you just move them about, you start part way through and end with the beginning part, that also is not paraphrasing. Remember, paraphrasing is putting things in your own words. Obviously, I mentioned this already, but changing the meaning. So it's really important that you don't do that, and that you don't omit something because it doesn't fit your argument, because this would be misrepresentation of the source and will affect your understanding and knowledge, and that's an area that you're marked on. If an author is quoting someone else, then try to find the original source and reference that rather than use it cited in. It's always important to try and use the primary source of evidence as much as you can, because what you don't know is if something's cited in another book, has that author themselves interpreted the original source properly themselves. And people forget to add the reference. As long as you include your reference, you really should have no problems with plagiarism. Sometimes people have unintentional plagiarism where they just have forgotten to put the reference, and it's really important that we avoid that. And I'm just going to add one extra thing with the introduction of AI now. There are some online paraphrasers that can do that for you, but remember, you are marked for your ability to assimilate knowledge and assimilate information from sources. So please don't use online paraphrasing. It could paraphrasers to do it for you. Your job is to do it yourself, and it could constitute an academic offence, and we don't really want to get any issues with that. So, last thing that I'm kind of going to look at is some practical exercises. So I'm going to give you some handouts to work on over the next few weeks, and then you can have the opportunity to share with me your outputs, or you can email them if you want to, but otherwise we'll talk to you when we next meet you. So I'm going to go through that in a minute. Okay, so you're going to be given this exercise to work on. We've got a few examples to work through. So as an overview, we're going to assume that you're going to be writing about the concept of congruence in a therapeutic relationship. So I know that's something important for you as practitioners and counsellors. So what you're going to do is you're going to review it from the concept of or perspective of from an academic third person perspective, and also then you're going to be looking at it from a reflective perspective in the first person. And it should also give you the opportunity to practice both styles of writing. So you're going to read a paragraph by Rogers, and I've given the source. So this is a book that is actually, so Rogers has actually had written a chapter in Cooper et al.'s book here, the Handbook of Person-Centered Psychotherapy and Counselling, so one of your main textbooks, which you can access also on Open Athens if you'd like to access it there as well. So it's important to note that you are going to reference it as an edited chapter in a book. So whilst normally you would have it as Cooper et al., actually the chapter's written by Rogers, so that's who you can reference. So this is going to be the paragraph that you're going to have a read through by Rogers on page 26, so you've got that, reference that properly. And then the part one, you are going to paraphrase the paragraph from Rogers and provide a brief description of what congruence is, and make sure obviously that you include your reference. So I'm just going to get you to briefly paraphrase this paragraph here. Right, once you've done that, so once you've taken the opportunity to have a go at paraphrasing, what I'm going to get you to do is find another source um, yourself that agrees or extends the definition provided by Rogers. What I'm going to get you to do is now synthesize that source, your new source, with that provided by Rogers to start building an argument. Remember, you build an argument, you need more than one person. And you can use signposting language, so you might put your one paragraph and then put something like in addition, Web, so whoever the new source is states or argues, or use your different language that we've given you. Or you could use multiple referencing strategies and combine them all to the paragraph together and use multiple referencing like this. Once you've had a go at that, we're going to start thinking about paraphrasing in the first person. So here, what we're going to do is think about what the paraphrase and the paragraph that you read earlier, and I'm going to get you to think about linking this with your own experiences. When I say linking, that means synthesize, so bringing your own experiences along with that by Rogers. So what you're going to do is you're going to, part 3 here is you're going to review that paraphrase that you made and reflect on your own experiences with what was written. So, for example, you might share if you agree with what was written by Rogers, or perhaps if you disagreed with what was written by Rogers, or you might find that you have other observations or inferences that you wish to make. So this is an opportunity to now turn that third person paraphrase into a first person piece of writing, but with the paraphrase included. So don't forget to use those reflective language prompts that we gave out in last session. So for example, you might say, you might have your paragraph from Rogers and you might say, you might say something like Rogers 2013 makes an interesting point which I have experienced myself, and then expand on that. So that's kind of what you'll be looking at there. And then for your final task is to review the paraphrase in the second part of part 1 and review on your experiences in relation to what was written. So that's where there was a consolidated paragraph where you synthesize more than one source. So you've got that from Rogers, but you've also got that one from that you identified yourself, and see how you would write that in a similar way to part 3 here. It would be interesting to see whether your paraphrase would change to what you wrote in part 2. So that's all we've got on the exercises. I hope this will help. I really do think that will make a difference with you to have an opportunity to practice. Particularly if this is an area that's for development, which you'd put on your development plans at the beginning of the year. Oh my God, I didn't do it.